If there was an award for most unwanted niece in the history of villages, Dumebi would have won it without nomination. At 6 years old, she lost both parents in a plane crash that shook the entire extended family. People cried loudly at the funeral. They promised heaven and earth. Then the tears dried, and so did their conscience. Her father's younger brother, Namdi, stood tall at the burial ground and announced dramatically, "Brother, don't worry wherever you are. I will take care of your daughter like my own." Even heaven must have coughed, because the only thing Namdi truly took care of was the paperwork transferring properties into his own name. Houses in Lagos, lands in Enugu, shares, accounts, everything quietly disappeared like Puff Puff at a children's party. And his wife, Ifeoma, known proudly in the village as Mama Nkechi, supervised the disappearance like a project manager. "Make sure you sign that page well," she would whisper. "Don't worry," Namdi replied. "She's just a child. Yes, just a child." Inside their modest village compound, two girls grew up under one roof, but lived in two different worlds. Nkechi, the biological princess, wavy hair always bouncing dramatically, even when there was no wind. She walked like background music followed her. And then there was Dumebi, curly hair tied neatly in a bun, always, because loose hair was for important children. "Dumebi," Ifeoma would shout at 5 a.m. sharp. "Why are you sleeping like someone who owns land?" Dumebi would jump up from her thin mat. "Mama, I was awake." "Awake? Did the plates wash themselves? Did the goat cook the soup?" Meanwhile, Nkechi would stretch lazily on her mattress. "Mummy, tell her to warm my bathing water. It's too early to be stressed." Dumebi fetched water. Dumebi swept. Dumebi cooked. Dumebi served Nkechi like a waitress in a 5-star restaurant that paid zero salary. One afternoon, Dumebi accidentally placed the spoon on the left instead of the right side of Nkechi's plate. Nkechi gasped. "Mummy, see disrespect." Ifeoma rushed in like it was an emergency meeting. "Dumebi, is this how they served your late mother's guests?" Dumebi blinked. "I don't remember, Mama. I was 6. Answering back, Ifeoma shouted. Even the spoon looked confused. The river that changed everything. Life would have remained only unfair, not transformative, if not for the river. At 11, while fetching water alone, Dumebi slipped on wet stones and fell badly. The pain in her leg was sharp enough to make her see stars in broad daylight. She dragged herself home. Namdi looked at her leg and frowned, like she had broken his television. It's swollen." Ifeoma folded her arms. "Where will we get hospital money? She likes falling too much." Dumebi spent hours crying quietly in a corner, until an old woman passing by heard her. The woman, small but sharp-eyed, inspected the leg. "Dislocation," she muttered. "And you people left her like this?" Ifeoma shrugged. "She's strong." The old woman carried Dumebi away that evening. For 6 months, Dumebi stayed with her. She learned about leaves that reduce swelling, roots that ease pain, oils that strengthen joints, patience that heals faster than medicine. The old woman would say, "Bones talk, you must listen," and Dumebi listened. When her leg healed fully, she didn't just walk back to the village. She walked back wiser. Years later, both girls gained admission to study abroad. The village celebrated. Ifeoma announced proudly, "My daughter will travel overseas." Dumebi's eyes sparkled. "Mama, both of us got admission." Ifeoma's smile disappeared like network signal. "Both of us, Kay? Who will cook? Who will clean? Who will remain here? But Uncle promised. Your father promised. And he is not here." Silence. Nkechi adjusted her wavy hair dramatically. "Don't worry, cousin. I will send you pictures." And she did. Pictures in London cafes. Pictures in snow. Pictures with captions like, "Soft life only." Meanwhile, Dumebi hustled in the village. She treated twisted ankles, massaged elderly knees, fixed dislocated shoulders. Payments sometimes came in yams, sometimes in cash, sometimes in "God bless you." She saved every naira. Eventually, she enrolled herself in an OND program. No announcement, no celebration, just resilience. By the time Nkechi returned from abroad, she had a new accent. Even her sneeze sounded imported. "Achoo, sorry." She moved to Lagos immediately. Village life is not for me, she declared. Dumaybe remained behind. But something had changed. The once silent girl now carried quiet confidence. Her curly bun wasn't just neat, it was dignified. Villagers respected her. Mama Doctor, some called her playfully. Ifeoma hated that title. Doctor without hospital, she would hiss. But Destiny was quietly preparing a stage far bigger than the village square, and somewhere in Lagos, inside a luxury mansion filled with marble and gold, a billionaire in a wheelchair was about to search for a wife, and fate with dramatic humor was already laughing. Because the girl they treated like a maid was about to become something they could never replace. Everything in that house screamed power, except the man in the wheelchair. Adekunle Adewale, billionaire real estate magnate, oil investor, and reluctant member of the rolling delegation. He was tall, 62, broad shoulders, dark chocolate skin, clean-shaven jawline sharp enough to cut ego, deep, commanding eyes that once intimidated boardrooms. Now, they watched the world from seated height, and he hated it. Adekunle had dated women from high society, actresses, models, corporate executives, influencers with accents that sounded like Wi-Fi passwords. They all had one thing in common: enthusiasm. Until they saw the wheelchair. One had gasped dramatically, "Oh my God, is it permanent? Another tried to be supportive. "Babe, love is not about legs, it's about accounts." He ended it. By the 10th failed relationship, even his driver had developed sympathy. "Sir," the driver once muttered carefully, "maybe try village setting." Adekunle blinked slowly. "Village setting?" "Yes, sir. Natural selection." One of his older business associates leaned forward during a quiet evening meeting. "Kunle," the man said, adjusting his glasses, "city women see what you cannot do. Village women see what you can provide." Adekunle stared at his untouched drink. "And what if I want someone who sees me?" The associate sighed. "Then let destiny surprise you." Two names were eventually brought forward from a particular village: Dumaybe, Nkechi. Adekunle didn't care about names. He cared about peace. "Arrange a visit," he instructed calmly. The day the black luxury SUV drove into Namdi's village compound, dust rose like an announcement. Villagers gathered. Children whispered. Goats paused mid-chew. Inside the car sat Adekunle, tailored navy suit, crisp white shirt, expensive watch glinting under sunlight. He looked powerful, until the driver opened the door and brought out the wheelchair. The entire compound froze. Nkechi's dramatic wavy hair seemed to stiffen in shock. Ifoma's smile collapsed like badly baked cake. Namdi forced laughter. "Ah, welcome, welcome." Adekunle adjusted his posture calmly as he was assisted forward. He was used to the silence, the staring, the disappointment. Then came the reaction. When Nkechi fully realized he could not stand, she nearly swallowed her lip gloss. Her eyes widened. She looked at her mother. Her mother looked at her. Both looked at the wheelchair like it had personally offended them. Nkechi whispered loudly enough for everybody to hear. "Marry like this?" Ifoma attempted damage control. "It's not that we mind, though, but... Adekunle's deep voice cut through smoothly. Nkechi straightened dramatically. "I studied abroad. I need a man that can walk beside me." The compound went silent. Even the chicken passing by stopped. Adekunle's jaw tightened briefly. He had heard worse, but rejection still stung. Ifoma recovered first. Her brain worked faster than village gossip. "Actually, there is another girl." Namdi nodded quickly like backup generator. "Our niece. Bring her," Adekunle said calmly. They didn't even warn Dumaybe. She was at the river, fetching water, her curly bun neat as always. When she was dragged back into the compound, slight wetness still clinging to her wrapper, she looked confused. She froze when she saw the suited stranger and the wheelchair. Her eyes didn't widen in disgust. They studied him. Not the chair. Him, Adekunle noticed. That was new. The air felt thick. Ifeoma leaned toward Dumaybe with fake sweetness. "This is a great opportunity for you." Translation: "Do not ruin this." Adekunle's voice softened slightly. "Will you marry me?" The entire village leaned forward collectively. Dumaybi's heart pounded. She saw wealth. She saw power. She saw a broken man hiding pride behind posture. And strangely, she saw loneliness. "Yes," she said gently. Nkechi nearly tripped. Ifeoma's eyes widened in disbelief. Adekunle's expression shifted, not excitement, relief. After the engagement was agreed upon, the compound buzzed like market day. Villagers whispered, "She accepted just like that? Maybe she likes real discount. At least Billionaire is Billionaire." Meanwhile inside, Nkechi paced like a soap opera character. "It should have been me," Ifeoma hissed. "You said no. I didn't know he was fine like that in face." "You were checking legs." When Adekunle's car left the village with Dumebi inside, she stared quietly through the tinted window. The dusty roads slowly transformed into highways, then into Lagos skyline, glass buildings, luxury estates, a different world. She adjusted her simple bag on her lap, curly bun still perfectly tied. Inside the mansion gates, as the doors opened automatically, Dumebi's reflection appeared on polished marble floors. For the first time in her life, she looked small in space, but not in spirit. Adekunle watched her reaction carefully. She did not gasp loudly. She did not spin around dramatically. She simply absorbed, like someone calculating a future. And for the first time in years, Adekunle felt something unfamiliar. Hope. As night fell over Lagos, the mansion lights glowed softly. Inside the massive bedroom prepared for her, Dumebi stood quietly by the balcony, curly bun intact, simple nightwear, city lights reflecting in her eyes. Behind her, the man on wheels watched silently. Two strangers, bound by circumstance, about to discover that destiny sometimes arrives, seated. And somewhere far away in the village, Nkechi stared at her phone bitterly, because she had rejected a wheelchair, but accidentally rejected a throne. The Adewale mansion had hosted politicians, oil moguls, and celebrities who sprayed money like confetti. But it had never hosted silence like this. The kind of silence that sits between two strangers who are technically married, but still politely confused about what to do next. Dumebi stood by the balcony, Lagos glittering beneath her like a bed of diamonds. The air smelled expensive. Even the curtains looked like they had passports. Behind her sat Adekunle Adewale, billionaire, 62 of disciplined masculinity, currently reduced to seated height. He cleared his throat. The sound echoed in the massive master bedroom like a board meeting about to begin. Dumebi turned gently, her curly bun still perfectly tied, her caramel skin glowing softly under the chandelier light. "You can sit," he said. She blinked once, looked around. Every chair in that room looked like it required a visa to touch. She perched carefully on the edge of a velvet armchair, like someone sitting in church for the first time. Everything about the room intimidated her. The king-sized bed alone could comfortably host a village meeting. Gold-lined mirrors, imported rugs, air conditioning that hummed like it was gossiping quietly. Back in the village, her room had one window and one stubborn mosquito. Here, even the air felt filtered. Adekunle watched her closely. She didn't rush to touch anything, didn't spin in circles, didn't scream in excitement. She absorbed, like someone measuring destiny with calm hands. "You're not surprised?" he asked. She looked around thoughtfully. "I am, but I don't want the house to think I'm too impressed." He paused. "The house?" "Yes. If I overreact, it may increase my rent." For the first time in weeks, Adekunle laughed. A real laugh. It startled both of them. Later that evening, staff brought dinner and left discreetly. Dumebi carefully arranged his plate closer. Her movements were steady. No pity, no discomfort. He noticed. Most women treated him like fragile glass or an inconvenient package. She treated him like a person. "Does it bother you?" he asked quietly. She tilted her head. "What?" He gestured slightly downward toward the wheelchair. There it was, the invisible third person in the marriage. She studied him, not the chair. "If a tree bends because of storm," she said gently, "do you cut it down?" He swallowed. "No. Then why should I?" He looked away quickly, pretending to adjust his watch, because suddenly his eyes felt suspiciously emotional. The next morning, Dumebi woke early. Village body clock still active. She tied her curly bun firmly, wrapped a simple shawl, and explored the kitchen. The kitchen was bigger than her entire family house in the village. Everything was automated. She touched one cabinet. It opened automatically. She jumped slightly. "Even cupboard here has attitude," she muttered. Later she found him in the living room, staring at the garden. Sunlight poured in through glass walls. "Can I ask something?" she said softly. He nodded. She knelt gently beside his wheelchair and examined the structure thoughtfully. "May I see your medical reports?" He blinked. "You're not afraid?" She looked confused. "Of paper?" He almost smiled. By afternoon, Dumebi had already asked for certain herbs to be sourced. The head housekeeper nearly fainted. "Herbs? In this mansion?" "Yes," Dumebi replied calmly. "It will not complain." Adekunle watched with interest as she applied warm herbal compress gently to his lower back. Her fingers were firm but careful. He inhaled sharply at first. She noticed immediately. "Pain? Only my pride," he replied. She raised one eyebrow. "That one will take longer." He laughed again. And something shifted, not just in his muscles, in his walls. That night, tension hovered in the room like perfume. The massive king-sized bed stood in the center, like a silent referee. Adekunle hesitated. "I can arrange another room for you." Dumebi looked at the bed, then at him, then back at the bed. "It is too big to fight," she said. He blinked. She adjusted her pillow confidently and lay down on one side. He transferred carefully with assistance earlier, now positioned on the other side. A large ocean of mattress between them. For a while, neither spoke. Then, "Are you comfortable?" he asked. "Yes." "Are you sure?" "Yes." Pause. "You?" "Yes." Another pause. "Good." 5 seconds later. "Are you really sure?" She turned toward him slowly. "If we continue checking, morning will meet us awake." Silence. Then quiet laughter in the dark. Days passed. Her treatments became routine. Massage, stretching, herbal oil, firm encouragement. Sometimes he winced. Sometimes he gritted his teeth. Once he snapped in frustration, gripping the wheelchair arms tightly. "Enough!" The room froze. Dumebi didn't flinch. She simply moved closer and knelt before him. "You are angry at your legs," she said softly. "Not at me." His breathing slowed. She gently placed her hands over his. "You are still powerful." He looked at her. Really looked. Curly buns slightly loose from the day's work. Sweat on her forehead. Determination in her large brown eyes. No fear. No calculation. No greed. Just commitment. His voice lowered. "Why are you doing this?" She smiled faintly. "Because when you stand, we both stand." And that was the moment something deeper than gratitude formed. One evening after therapy, he managed to support himself briefly using parallel bars installed discreetly in a private gym section. Only for seconds, but seconds that felt like a miracle. He looked at her, breath uneven. "I did it." Her eyes shone brighter than the chandelier. "Yes." He reached for her instinctively. She stepped closer. Too close. The air thickened. His hand moved to her waist carefully, not forcefully, not arrogantly, carefully. She didn't step back. Instead, she steadied him, their faces inches apart. For the first time, there was no wheelchair in the space between them. Just warmth, just breath, just two hearts adjusting to a new rhythm. Later that night, he attempted to tease her. "If I recover fully, you know you'll have to keep up with me." She folded her arms confidently. "I carried water on my head for years. You think I cannot carry you?" He stared, then burst out laughing. "Remind me never to argue with you." She smiled proudly. Good decision. The camera of destiny would have zoomed out that night. Luxury mansion glowing under Lagos skyline. Inside the master bedroom, no longer two strangers. Not yet fully lovers. But something powerful was forming. Healing was happening. Not just in bone and nerve, but in pride, in trust, in longing. And somewhere far away, Nikechi unknowingly felt uneasy. Because she chased status, Dumebi was quietly building a throne beside a king who was learning to stand again. Recovery does not announce itself with trumpet. It begins quietly, like pride swallowing itself, like a stubborn man realizing he needs help. The private gym in the Adewale mansion had once been decoration, imported machines, polished wooden floors, floor-to-ceiling mirrors that reflected ambition. For months, it reflected frustration. Now, it reflected hope. Adekunle gripped the parallel bars firmly, jaw tight, shoulders flexed. His dark skin glistened slightly under the soft lighting. At 62, even bent forward, he looked powerful. Dumaybe stood directly in front of him. 56, caramel skin glowing, curly hair tied in her usual neat bun, eyes focused like a commander in a battlefield. Slowly, she instructed gently. He inhaled, pushed. His legs trembled, his arms shook, his pride screamed. Then he lifted. Not fully, not gracefully, but enough. His body rose a few inches off the wheelchair seat. The silence in the gym became sacred. Then he dropped back down, breathing hard. Dumaybe's eyes widened with excitement. You did it. He blinked, chest rising and falling. That was not standing. That was negotiating. She tried to hide her laughter. You negotiated well. The next attempt was longer and louder. He pushed himself up again. This time he remained upright for 5 seconds. 5 powerful seconds. His hands gripping the bars, legs trembling like they were remembering a forgotten language. Sweat rolled down his temple. Dumaybe stepped closer instinctively. Don't hold me, he muttered through clenched teeth. She raised both hands in surrender. I am only supervising. He stood for 8 seconds, then collapsed back into the wheelchair. He closed his eyes. Dumaybe leaned forward and whispered softly, Your legs are not dead. They were just angry. He opened one eye. They've been angry for 2 years. Well, we will apologize properly. He laughed, tired but alive. Every evening became routine. Warm compress, herbal oil massage, stretching. The staff had stopped asking questions. The mansion now smelled slightly of eucalyptus and bitter leaves. One housekeeper once whispered to another, This mansion used to smell like imported perfume. The other replied, Now it smells like village determination. But results were visible. His thighs began responding, his knees less stiff, his posture stronger. One afternoon, while she worked on his legs, he watched her quietly. Her sleeves rolled slightly, her curly bun tight and dignified, her expression focused. You are very stubborn, he said. She didn't look up. So are you. If I recover fully, she paused. Yes? I will chase you around this house. She finally looked up. You cannot even catch me now. He smirked. Confidence. Village cardio, she replied calmly. The day the crutches arrived felt like a ceremony. Shiny, strong, symbolic. He stared at them for a long time. Dumaybe folded her arms. They are not enemies. They look like progress. He exhaled deeply. With effort, he pulled himself up between the parallel bars and shifted his weight onto the crutches. The first step was ugly. The second step was shaky. The third step, powerful. He took 3 full steps. 3. Dumaybe's hand flew to her mouth. He stood there, balanced, breathing hard. I am taller than you again, he announced dramatically. She narrowed her eyes. For now. He laughed loudly, a deep, free sound that echoed through the gym. Confidence returned quickly, and confidence on a man like Adekunle was dangerous. He began dressing sharper, walking slowly through the living room with crutches, supervising business calls standing. The staff noticed, the energy changed. Even the marble floor seemed proud. One evening while practicing, he lost balance slightly and instinctively grabbed Dumaybe's waist. They froze. Her hands were on his chest, his grip firm but protective, their faces inches apart. The air thickened. You see, he murmured softly, already catching you. She swallowed. You almost fell. I did not. You did. He leaned slightly closer. Argue with me when I'm fully standing. Her heartbeat betrayed her calm expression. She stepped back carefully. Focus on walking first. He smiled slowly. That too. News travels faster than internet in Nigerian families. Within weeks, whispers reached the village. He is using crutches now. He stood for 10 seconds. He is improving. Nkechi nearly dropped her phone. What do you mean he stood? Ifoma paced their sitting room. It should have been you. Nkechi held her head dramatically. I rejected temporary problem. Yes, Ifoma snapped. You rejected future upgrade. Back in Lagos, Adekunle was learning to climb stairs slowly, and every step he took felt like revenge against doubt. One late evening, after an intense therapy session, he managed to walk slowly from the gym to the living room using crutches without assistance. Dumebi followed quietly behind, ready but not hovering. He reached the center of the marble floor, stopped, turned toward her, dropped one crutch carefully, balancing. She gasped slightly. "What are you doing?" He stretched one hand toward her. "Come here." She stepped closer cautiously. He placed both crutches aside and held her waist carefully, standing on his own strength. His height towered over her again. The position felt different, commanding, intimate, new. "You see?" he whispered softly, standing. She looked up at him, eyes shining. "Yes, and I am not letting you go." Her breath caught. For a moment, everything else disappeared. The mansion, the past, the wheelchair, just two people adjusting to a miracle. Then, his knee wobbled. She quickly grabbed him. They both burst into laughter as he sat down heavily on the sofa. He covered his face briefly. "Do not tell anybody." She laughed freely. Too late, the chandelier saw. Weeks later, Adekunle walked slowly across the living room, using crutches, no assistance. Dumebi stood at the far end, waiting. He took step after step toward her, determined, focused. When he finally reached her, he didn't say anything. He simply pulled her gently into his chest, standing, fully upright. And somewhere far away in the village, jealousy began packing its bags for Lagos, because a man they rejected in a wheelchair was walking back into power. And this time, he wasn't alone. The first morning, Adekunle stood without crutches. The mansion nearly fainted. Okay, not the mansion exactly, but the chandelier shook like it had sensed destiny. The marble floor gleamed. The air felt different. Even the security guards outside stood straighter for no reason. And in the center of it all stood Adekunle Adewale, 62, broad-shouldered, deep chocolate skin glowing in the Lagos sunlight. Low-cut hair perfectly groomed, jaw sharp enough to cut glass. Standing, without crutches. Dumebi froze. Not because she was shocked. No, she had always believed he would walk again. But seeing him at his full height after months of wheels and aluminum support, it felt like witnessing a lion. Remember, it was king. Adekunle looked down at himself, flexed his legs slightly, then glanced at Dumebi. "Look at me," he said dramatically, spreading his arms a little. "I'm tall again." Dumebi blinked. "Sir, you were always tall." He nodded solemnly. "Emotionally tall doesn't count. Physically tall is different." She tried not to laugh. She failed. And that laugh, that soft, uncontrollable laugh, hit him harder than therapy ever did. The return of swagger. Recovery didn't just bring back his legs, it brought back his ego. By afternoon, Adekunle had changed outfits 3 times. First, a navy-tailored suit. Second, a charcoal gray one to test balance. Third, a cream designer outfit for aesthetic symmetry. Dumebi stood by the doorway, watching him adjust his cufflinks for the 8th time. "Sir, are you attending 3 weddings today?" He didn't even look ashamed. A man must reintroduce himself to the world properly. She folded her arms. "The world has been surviving without your reintroduction." He gasped. Blasphemy. The first public appearance. The board meeting had been postponed for months. Executives had been whispering, investors had been speculating, and some enemies quietly celebrating. But today, the doors of Adewale Group headquarters opened. The elevator dinged, and out stepped Adekunle. Walking, no wheelchair, no crutches, just controlled, steady steps, and an aura so commanding that even the receptionist nearly saluted. Inside the boardroom, silence fell like a dramatic Nollywood pause. He walked to the head of the table slowly, not because he needed to, but because suspense is powerful. Then he sat down gracefully. One executive cleared his throat, nervously. "Sir, you look expensive," Adekunle suggested. "Healthy, sir." He nodded. "That too." The room burst into relieved laughter. He leaned back confidently. "Gentlemen, let's continue from where I left you. And next time you hear rumors about my downfall, verify before you celebrate." Some men swallowed visibly. Power had returned. In the village, Ifoma heard rumors that Adekunle was fully recovered. Her restlessness doubled, because when a lion stands again, the jungle rearranges itself. Adekunle had regained his legs, but more importantly, he had regained perspective. And Dumebi? She wasn't just helping him walk anymore. She was walking beside him, and the world was starting to notice. 3 days later, Ifoma arrived in Lagos dressed like someone auditioning for Mother of the Billionaire. Heavy gold jewelry, bright Ankara wrapper, confidence larger than her bank account. Nkechi met her at the airport. They hugged dramatically, as if preparing for battle. Inside the car, Ifoma lowered her voice. First rule, act loving. Second rule, take over. Nkechi nodded seriously. Third rule, remove the bun girl. The Adewale mansion gleamed under the afternoon sun. Modern architecture, marble driveway, glass doors, quiet power. Dumebi was arranging fresh flowers in the living room, her curly hair neatly tied in her signature bun, wearing a simple fitted knee-length dress. The doorbell rang. She opened it, and there they stood. Nkechi, tall, poised, wavy hair cascading like an expensive shampoo commercial. Ifoma, smiling too widely. Dumebi blinked. Auntie. Ifoma opened her arms dramatically. My daughter. Dumebi nearly looked behind her to confirm who she was talking to. Inside the living room, the luxury Nigerian modern interior sparkled around them. Beige leather couches, gold-accented decor, glass coffee table. Ifoma sat down and began surveying the room like a property inspector. She murmured. This sofa is too neutral. Nkechi casually adjusted a throw pillow. Yes, it needs a feminine touch. Dumebi raised an eyebrow slightly. This house has been fine. Nkechi smiled sweetly. Now it can be finer. The next morning, Adekunle left for Zurich to revive abandoned business deals. He walked confidently through the airport, tall and composed, unaware of the hurricane forming behind him. The moment his car left the mansion, Nkechi transformed. She switched from visitor to commander. She changed the curtains, rearranged furniture, ordered new artwork, even instructed staff with unnecessary authority. I prefer lilies, not roses, she announced, though no one had asked. Dumebi watched quietly at first. Then came the ultimate shock. Nkechi, dressed in a tailored white power suit, hair flowing in controlled waves, and drove to Adewale Group headquarters. She walked into the lobby with confidence sharp enough to slice glass. I'm Mrs. Adewale, she announced smoothly. The receptionist froze. Employees whispered excitedly. They had heard rumors that the wife healed him. They had never seen her before. Nkechi smiled like a saint collecting testimonies. Yes, she continued modestly. It was faith and dedication. Meanwhile, Dumebi was at home watering plants. The glory thief. By afternoon, pictures circulated within internal company chats. Boss's wife visits office. Madam looks educated. She's the one that helped him walk. Nkechi posed in Adekunle's office chair, ran her fingers over the desk, looked at the skyline view. She felt it. Power. And she loved it. Dumebi's quiet strength. Back at the mansion, Dumebi felt the shift. The staff's tone had changed slightly. Nkechi had begun calling contractors. Even Mama Ifeoma started acting like a resident queen mother. One evening, Ifeoma approached Dumebi in the kitchen. My dear, she began with syrupy sweetness, big empires need refined women. Dumebi continued slicing vegetables calmly. And herbs need steady hands, she replied. Ifeoma forced a smile that twitched dangerously. You are good for village matters. Ifeoma blinked. She wasn't expecting resistance from someone she once forced to fetch water. That night, in the guest room, Nkechi and her mother whispered. He needs someone sophisticated beside him, Nkechi insisted. Exactly, Ifeoma nodded. You studied abroad. You understand wine glasses. They both nodded like that was a doctorate. We push her out gently, Ifeoma concluded. How? We make her uncomfortable. The frustration begins. The next few days were a silent battlefield. Nkechi corrected staff in front of Dumebi. She replaced Dumebi's herbal jars with scented candles. She sat in the master bedroom like she owned it. One afternoon, she even tried reorganizing Adekunle's wardrobe. Dumebi walked in and froze. Nkechi turned slowly. Oh, she said sweetly, I'm just arranging my husband's suits. The air tightened. Dumebi's eyes darkened slightly. Your husband? Nkechi smiled wider. Don't worry, when he returns, things will be clearer. Dumebi stepped closer, not aggressive, just steady. When he returns, things will be corrected. A week later, nightfall. When Adekunle returned from Zurich, he did not shout. He did not ask questions. He simply stood in the center of his living room, 62 of fully recovered authority, and let silence do the talking. And silence in that mansion was louder than thunder. Nkechi descended the staircase like she was walking into a perfume commercial. Silk robe, perfect waves cascading over her shoulders, chin lifted, confidence rehearsed. Behind her stood Mama Ifeoma, wrapper tied tight, eyes shining with "Victory has arrived." Dumebi stood near the hallway entrance, simple house dress, curly hair tied neatly in her bun, hands folded in front of her. Calm, still. The contrast alone could start a war. Adekunle looked around slowly. New curtains, different scent. His art pieces rearranged like they were auditioning for a new owner. He inhaled once. "Did my house travel while I was gone?" he asked dryly. No one answered immediately. Nkechi smiled sweetly. "I thought the place needed refinement." Adekunle glanced at the gold statue, now awkwardly placed in a corner. It needed relocation therapy? Mama Ifeoma cleared her throat loudly. "We are only helping. Big empires require big adjustments." Adekunle raised one eyebrow. "Ah, and I missed the board meeting where you became shareholders." Dumebi pressed her lips together to avoid laughing. Nkechi's smile tightened. 2 days later, Mama Ifeoma decided enough was enough. If dignity would not remove Dumebi, then strategy would. She stood in the kitchen, examining a tray of herbal tea Dumebi had prepared for Adekunle. She stared at the steaming cup like it had personally offended her daughter. Then, very casually, she reached into her handbag. Inside was a small sachet. Her eyes darted left, then right. She opened it, sprinkled a light powder into the cup, stirred gently, and smiled. Unfortunately for her, she had forgotten one important detail. Village girls who treat bones also understand herbs. Dumebi entered the kitchen quietly. Her eyes landed on the cup, then on the spoon, then on Mama Ifeoma's suspiciously innocent face. Dumebi walked closer, picked up the cup, brought it near her nose, paused, lowered it slowly. "Mama," she said calmly, "since when does green tea smell like sleeping pills?" Mama Ifeoma coughed so violently she nearly swallowed her own pride. "I don't know what you're implying." Dumebi placed the cup gently on the counter. "I'm implying that if anything happens to my husband, the police will not come to ask me first." The air went tight. Mama Ifeoma straightened up defensively. "You think you are clever?" Dumebi's brown eyes remained steady. "No, I just pay attention." Meanwhile, at Adewale Group headquarters, rumors were brewing. Nkechi had already introduced herself as Mrs. Adewale during his absence, posed in his chair, accepted congratulations, smiled for photos. Employees were thrilled that the wife who healed their boss had finally appeared. There was only one small problem. The actual wife had never been introduced publicly. And now the actual husband had returned. Adekunle walked into the office unexpectedly that afternoon. Executives stood immediately. The receptionist nearly dropped her pen. He walked calmly into his office, stopped, and saw it. A framed photo of Nkechi, sitting at his desk, placed proudly near the bookshelf. He picked it up slowly, turned it over, then pressed the intercom. Who authorized this decoration? Within minutes, the HR manager appeared, sweating lightly. "Sir, we were informed by your wife." He stared. "My wife?" "Yes, sir." He leaned back in his chair. "And which one visited?" The HR manager blinked twice. At that exact moment, Nkechi walked in confidently. White power suit fitted perfectly, wavy hair flowing like she had just stepped out of a magazine. She stopped when she saw him sitting there, standing, healthy, watching. "Adekunle," she breathed. He looked at her calmly. "Good afternoon, madam." The temperature in the room dropped to Antarctica levels. She attempted to recover her composure. "I was just helping oversee things." From my chair, silence. Employees outside pretended to suddenly love paperwork. That evening, Adekunle returned home early. He walked into the living room and called everyone together. Staff lined up nervously. Nkechi stood poised. Mama Ifoma folded her arms dramatically. Dumebi stood slightly behind, calm but observant. Adekunle looked around slowly. I appreciate concern, he began evenly. But I dislike confusion. He turned to the staff. There is only one Mrs. Adewale in this house. Nkechi's breathing shifted slightly. He extended his hand. Dumebi hesitated for half a second, then stepped forward, placed her hand in his. The room froze. Mama Ifoma gasped audibly. Nkechi's smile cracked. Adekunle pulled Dumebi slightly closer. She stood when I couldn't. She believed when others calculated. His voice deepened. And anyone who forgets that will leave this house. Mama Ifoma attempted to protest. He raised one finger gently. She stopped mid-sentence. That finger held more authority than her entire wrapper collection. Later that night, in their bedroom, the tension dissolved into something softer. Adekunle stood near the window overlooking Lagos. Dumebi remained near the dresser, quietly removing her earrings. He turned toward her. You could have told me. She looked at him. You needed to see it yourself. He walked closer. Tall, strong, present. You're not just my healer, he said softly. You're my backbone. She laughed lightly. That's ironic, considering I fix bones. He smiled. For the first time in days, peace returned to the mansion. Down the hall, Mama Ifoma packed her bags aggressively. Nkechi sat on the guest bed staring at her reflection again. This time it wasn't betrayal she saw, it was consequence. And in the master bedroom, beneath soft golden lighting and the quiet Lagos skyline, Adekunle and Dumebi stood side by side. Not because of sympathy, not because of strategy, but because loyalty had outlived jealousy. By morning, the mansion felt different. Not tense, not heavy, just clean. The guest wing was quiet. No dramatic footsteps, no aggressive zipper sounds, no Queen Mother inspections of curtains that did not belong to her. Mama Ifeoma and Nkechi had left before sunrise. No farewell speech, no final performance, just wounded pride packed into expensive luggage. A week later, Adekunle Adewale did something he had never done before. He made an announcement. The Adewale Group annual leadership gala was approaching, a grand event filled with investors, media, politicians, and Lagos society's loudest elites. For years, Adekunle had attended alone. This time, he sent out an updated guest note. The chairman will attend with his wife. Lagos social media nearly fainted. Rumors exploded. Was it the elegant abroad educated lady they had seen at the office? Was it a secret society bride? Was it another billionaire's daughter? The night of the gala arrived. The ballroom glittered under crystal chandeliers, gold decor, velvet drapes, champagne towers. Camera flashes waited hungrily at the entrance. A sleek black car pulled up. Adekunle stepped out first. 62, tailored black tuxedo, shoulders broad, jaw sharp, fully recovered and radiating authority. Then he turned and extended his hand. Dumebi stepped out. Emerald silk gown hugging her frame with quiet elegance. Caramel skin glowing under the lights. Her natural curly hair tied in her signature bun. Minimal jewelry, maximum presence. The room fell silent. She didn't look loud, she looked steady. Adekunle did not walk ahead of her. He walked beside her. Equal pace, equal power. Whispers filled the hall. That's his wife? She looks so calm. She's not flashy. She's beautiful. On stage, Adekunle took the microphone. His voice carried effortlessly across the ballroom. I stand here today not just as a businessman who recovered his health, but as a man who learned loyalty the hard way. He turned slightly. Dumebi met his gaze without fear. When I could not stand, she stood for me. When others calculated my condition, she cared for it. Cameras zoomed in. She is my wife, Mrs. Dumebi Adewale. Applause erupted. Real applause, not polite society clapping, but the kind that recognizes truth. The final attempt. In a far corner of the hall, Nkechi stood frozen. Yes, she had come. Curiosity had dragged her there like unfinished business. Her long wavy hair flowed perfectly, her makeup flawless, her pride carefully stitched together. But when the spotlight hit Dumebi, something inside her finally broke. It was never about education. It was never about fashion. It was about loyalty. And loyalty cannot be stolen. Mama Ifeoma tugged her arm quietly. Let's go. For once, Nkechi did not argue. They left quietly. No dramatic exit. Just two women walking out of a dream that was never theirs. Back at the mansion, later that night, back home, the mansion glowed warmly. The original curtains were restored. The herbal jars sat proudly in the kitchen again. Peace felt permanent. Adekunle loosened his bow tie and walked toward Dumebi on the balcony, overlooking the Lagos skyline. You handled that spotlight well, he said softly. She smiled. I've handled worse. He laughed lightly. Then his expression softened. I almost lost everything once, he admitted. My health, my judgment, my peace. She stepped closer. But you didn't. He brushed a loose curl near her bun, gently. You didn't let me. For a moment, the powerful billionaire wasn't a lion. He was simply a man grateful for the woman who chose him when he had nothing impressive to offer but a wheelchair. He wrapped his arms around her, not as a display, not as a possession, but as a promise. 1 year later, the mansion echoed again, but this time with something new. Laughter. Tiny footsteps. Dumebi stood in the nursery, bun slightly softer than usual, cradling a baby boy with deep chocolate skin and bright, curious eyes. Adekunle entered quietly behind her. He looked at his son, then at his wife. You healed me, he murmured. She shook her head gently. No, you chose to stand. He smiled. And I chose right. In the village, Nkechi eventually moved abroad again. This time, not as a princess, but as someone rebuilding quietly. Mama Ifeoma learned something she never expected to learn. Ambition without integrity collapses loudly. The villagers still spoke of Dumebi, not as the girl who was forced to stay behind, but as the woman who rose without revenge. Dumebi was never loud, never flashy, never strategic. She was simply loyal. And in a world where many marry for advantage, she married for commitment. The lion stood again, not because he found a stronger woman, but because he found a truer one. And the crown, it was never for sale. It belonged to the one who stayed. Never reject someone because of their weakness. True love sees beyond condition. Jealousy destroys the jealous first. What is forced will never prosper. And in a mansion filled with gold and glass, the village girl with a curly bun remained the true queen. What lessons have you learned from this story? Let us know on the comments. Like and subscribe for more Billionaire's love story.